We all hold this little paradox in our hands every single day, the smartphone.
Right.
I mean, it is probably the most powerful tool ever created. It gives you instant access to everything, communication, information, your entire schedule.
Infinite power, basically.
Infinite power, exactly. But here's the thing. If it offers all this boundless potential, why does being constantly connected so often leave us feeling, I don't know, scattered, less able to focus?
Hmm.
What if the mere presence of this thing comes with a hidden cost, a kind of cognitive tax you don't even know you're paying?
And that's the question.
It is. And today we are doing a deep dive into the research that really answers that question. We're unpacking a huge paper by Ward, Duke, Neasy, and Balls that sort of crystallized this whole brain drain idea.
It's a foundational piece of work.
It really is. Our mission here is to look at the hard evidence that shows the presence of your phone. Just having it nearby, even when it's silent and face down, is actively reducing your available brain power.
And this is not some, niche problem for a few people.
Not at all.
That's what makes the source material so compelling. They lay out the numbers. We're talking about, 91% of owners who say they never leave home without their phone?
Never.
And people are interacting with them, on average, 85 times a day. This isn't just an accessory anymore. For most of us, it's an extension of ourself.
It's become this central hub for modern life, right?
Yeah.
We're glued to them.
Yeah.
But the question this research really digs into is, what are we sacrificing for that connection?
Precisely. And for a long time, the conversation around distraction was always about active use.
You mean like texting and driving?
Texting and driving, or, scrolling through social media when you're supposed to be studying, the obvious stuff.
Right.
But this research takes a hard left turn. It asks, what's the cost when the phone is just sitting there, not being used at all? The mechanism they look at is this core psychological concept of limited capacity attentional resources.
Okay, break that down for us.
Think of your brain's processing power like the RAM in your computer. It's a finite pool.
Yeah.
And that pool has to support everything. Basic thoughts, complex decisions, and, this is the key part, attentional control. Keeping your focus where it needs to be.
So you're saying some of that RAM is always running background software just to keep the phone out of the foreground.
That is the perfect analogy. And that's the core hypothesis. Your phone is, by its very nature, a high-priority stimulus. It's a portal to everything.
Everything you need and want.
Exactly. So if it's nearby, even if you're trying to ignore it, a part of your brain has to actively work to inhibit your automatic attention from drifting to it. And that work, that inhibition, uses up resources.
Hold on, I just need to pause on that for a second. So the simple act of not picking up your phone takes cognitive effort.
A measurable amount, yes.
It's not that the phone might distract you. It's that the very act of resisting it is the distraction.
That's it. That completely flips the script.
It really does.
And because those resources are being used up to suppress that urge, they just aren't available for higher level thinking. And that leads to this cognitive deficit, the brain drain.
Okay, so if this is happening below the level of consciousness, how on earth do you measure it? You can't just ask people how full their mental RAM is.
You can't. So they needed objective, hard metrics of cognitive horsepower.
And they picked two big ones.
Two really important domain general functions. First was working memory capacity, or WMC.
And this is crucial. This isn't just like remembering a phone number.
No, it's not long-term memory. It's your mental workbench. It's your ability to hold information in your mind while you're actively processing something else. They measured this with the operations span task, or OSPAN.
That's the classic test, right? Where you have to do a bunch of math problems, but also remember a string of unrelated letters in between.
That's the one. It's designed to put your working memory under load. If you have less cognitive capacity available, your performance on the OSPAN drops. You just can't juggle both things at once.
Okay, so that's one. And the second metric was fluid intelligence.
Graph.
Graph, right. They measured that using Raven's standard progressive matrices. This is seen as a really pure measure of raw cognitive power because it's all about pattern recognition and problem solving.
Exactly. It's about solving novel problems, completely separate from what you already know. So if the phone is draining your ability to think abstractly, your GRIF score should go down.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about experiment 1.
This is where they really put the theory to the test. They set it up to manipulate what they call smartphone salience.
Basically how front and center the phone felt.
Right. They had over 500 students come in and do these tough cognitive tasks, and they put them in one of 3 groups.
What were the conditions?
So you had the high salience group. Their phone was placed right on the desk, face down.
Okay.
Then the medium salience group. Their phone was nearby, but out of sight. So in a pocket or a bag.
And the last one.
The low salience group, their phone was in a completely different room.
And this is important. Everyone was told to silence their phone. No rings, no vibrations, no notifications.
None. They were guaranteed not to be interrupted. And the findings, well, they were just this incredibly clear, linear trend.
The more present the phone, the worse the performance.
Exactly. The group that performed best on both working memory and fluid intelligence. The other room group.
And the worst.
The ones whose phones were right there on the desks, the pocket or bag group fell right in the middle every time.
That is genuinely shocking. I think so many of us, myself included, we feel like we're being disciplined by just flipping the phone over while we work.
We think we've solved the problem.
But this data says that's basically useless if the phone is still physically there.
It seems so. And what makes this even more powerful is what the researchers found when they talked to the participants afterward. They asked them, hey, how often were you thinking about your phone during this test?
And what did they say?
The overwhelming answer in every single group desk, pocket, other room was not at all.
Wow.
And on top of that, almost 76% of them said they didn't think the location of their phone made any difference to their performance. They were completely unaware.
So the cost is involuntary, unconscious, and totally undetected by the person who's paying it.
That's the brain drain.
But okay, what about the anxiety argument? You could say maybe they weren't consciously thinking about it, but there was still that little bit of stress, that fear of missing out on an important call or a text.
The anticipation.
Right. That could be the real resource drain, not the object itself.
A totally fair point. And that is precisely what Experiment 2 was designed to figure out.
How'd they do that?
They replicated the whole setup, the 3 locations, but they added a new variable, phone power. So some people were told to silence their phones, just like before, but the other group was told to turn their phones completely off.
Okay, so if it's about notification anxiety, the power off group should have done way better.
They should have, but they didn't. The results were definitive. The performance drop based on location was perfectly replicated. Desk was worst, other room was best.
And the power status?
Made 0 difference. There was no effect whatsoever of whether the phone was on or completely off.
So that really rules out the phono theory. It's not about waiting for a buzz. It's just the knowledge that this thing, this gateway to your entire digital life, is within arm's reach.
That's what the data points to. They also checked for sustained attention to see if people were, zoning out. No difference, which reinforces that this is about a reduction in cognitive capacity, less processing power, not an active interruption. Your brain is just less capable, not less attentive.
It also seems like this wouldn't affect everyone equally. I mean, if you just use your phone to make calls, maybe it's not as big a deal as it is for someone who runs their whole life off it.
A great point, and they looked at that too. They measured 2 individual traits. First was emotional attachment, basically how much you like your phone.
And the second?
Smartphone dependence, which is about how much you rely on your phone for, daily functioning.
What'd they find?
Only smartphone dependence made a difference.
Really?
The people who scored highest on the dependence scale were the ones who suffered the biggest drop in performance when their phone was nearby.
That is such a key distinction. It's not about enjoyment, it's about necessity.
Exactly.
If your phone is your key, your wallet, your calendar, your bank, the more central it is to your life, the higher priority it becomes as a stimulus.
And the more resources your brain has to burn just to keep it at bay. It's a tough cycle. The more you need it, the bigger the cognitive hit you take when it's around.
So let's connect the dots here. What does a persistent low-level drop in working memory and fluid intelligence actually look like in the real world?
It looks like being worse at almost everything we value. Learning, reasoning, problem solving, creativity. For you as a consumer, it can completely change how you make decisions.
Right, because when our cognitive resources are low, we switch from that slow analytical system 2 thinking.
To the fast, intuitive, gut-feeling system 1.
And that makes you more vulnerable.
For sure. Imagine you're comparing 2 really complex insurance plans. If your phone is on the table, you're just more likely to go with the simpler option or get swayed by superficial things, even if it's the worst choice for you.
Or something like the anchoring effect. Someone throws out a high price, and if your brain is already running on fumes, you don't have the mental energy to properly analyze and push back against that number.
A perfect example. And you see these implications everywhere. Think about education. The vast majority of young adults own smartphones. If they're taking a test with their phone in their bag, on silent.
Their performance is already compromised.
Demonstrably so. We might be setting them up to underperform without anyone even realizing why.
And advertising, too. If your message requires someone to really think deeply about the benefits of a product.
Good luck if their phone is nearby. They just won't have the cognitive surplus to engage. Simple, emotional messages will always win out when the brain is drained.
So this brings us to the solutions.
Yeah.
And the data is pretty clear about what doesn't work.
All right, the intuitive fixes don't hold up. Putting your phone face down,
Futile.
turning it off completely.
Also futile.
The problem isn't the notification, it's the device itself and what it represents. The only solution that worked in the lab, the one that restores your cognitive capacity, is separation.
Physical separation.
Putting the device in another room. Out of sight, out of reach, out of mind.
That's it.
When you reduce the salience to zero, your brain can finally stop running that inhibition program. But there's one really important caveat from other research.
Which is?
The separation has to be intentional. If you're forced to be away from your phone, or if you can hear it buzzing in the other room and can't answer it, that creates anxiety that can be just as bad, if not worse.
So you have to define these protected, phone-free zones for yourself.
Mhm.
For deep work, for important conversations, it's the only way to guarantee you're bringing your full brain to the task.
Exactly. The core finding here is that the smartphone's unique role as our connection to everything means that our dependence on it comes with this constant, quiet, cognitive cost. Attacks. And one other interesting way to think about it, which the researchers mention, is that it might not just be about inhibiting an urge. It might be a form of active hypervigilance.
Meaning your brain is constantly scanning for it.
A constant low-level monitoring of that critical object, just in case.
You know, that makes so much sense when you think about phantom vibration syndrome.
Oh, for sure.
That feeling that your phone just buzzed in your pocket when it absolutely did not.
Yeah.
The source notes that almost 90% of us have felt that. Your brain is so primed to monitor the phone that it starts inventing signals.
It's literally on the lookout.
So what does this all mean for us?
It means we have to start seeing our environment differently. That phone on your desk isn't a neutral object, it's an active drain. The real challenge is to recognize the true cost of convenience.
And think about the cumulative effect.
Right. If almost all of us are keeping our phones nearby all day, every day, if we are all constantly operating slightly below our full cognitive potential, what does that do to us as a society?
Are we making worse decisions, struggling with complex problems, being less innovative, all because we can't bring ourselves to put our phones in another room?
It's a provocative question.
The big takeaway here isn't just about avoiding distraction. It's about actively reclaiming your brain's processing power. Protecting those periods of intentional disconnection isn't anti-technology. It's a strategic move to make sure that when you do engage, you are bringing your absolute best, sharpest, most capable self to the table.